Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Mark Isaac Potter Presents. We're visiting today with, if I may say so, he likes me to be informal, but I grew up in a way that makes me feel like that's disrespectful given how much accomplishments this young scientist has had. Dr. Fredric Abramson, who is an expert in genetics and especially how genetics affects our bodies and our ability to heal, how we can avoid injury by knowing more about our own genetics. Dr. Abramson, welcome to the show. We love you deeply. I've had 12 women call me this week trying to get dates with you. Yeah. They're paying me 75 to $120 each. And I take the money and then I tell them you're busy. So it's another income stream for me, you know.
Okay.
You know me, I'm always joking around. So
We
what
both have a sense of humor that is
what aspect of genetics would you like to share with us today?
well, you know, I think for most people, the issue of understanding how our genes impact everyday life
Okay.
is an important area.
Okay.
And part of that is because, and I don't try to remember the things I may have said before. So if I repeat
Yeah,
myself,
yeah. No, repetition is the heart of advertising.
yeah,
So
but one of the things I realized actually in 1976, I had an aha moment in
okay.
a CEO in New York City. I was part of a group from MIT.
Okay.
This was just before Christmas and right after lunch.
Okay.
You can imagine-
That's a good combination.
Yeah, you can imagine what a New York CEO does at lunch before
Uh,
Christmas.
yeah, I'm not sure could imagine, but yeah, I'm from
Well,
Ohio, so
I said it
we
brings,
don't have CEOs.
well, I said it brings new meaning to the word liquidity.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, okay. Yes,
so
now I get it.
he gives his talk. This is after lunch.
All right.
He said, I'll take questions. And I put my hand up and he calls on me and I stand up and I say, well, I'm Dr. Fredric Abramson. And before I got much further, he says, stop right there. Do you know
Oh,
what the problem with the American people is? And I shake
huh.
my head. He said, they want to die healthy. And I went, wow, that's the home run statement of the year. Dying healthy is not
Ah,
is living well.
yeah, huh,
Okay.
yeah.
But here's the punchline, Mark. He was the CEO of Philip Morris, the cigarette company.
It's just like any good drug dealer. They don't take their own drugs. Yeah.
Right. But
Probably not. Never was a smoker, I would imagine.
probably not. But here's the thing that I realized is that we can use science to help people live better
Okay.
instead of frightening them and telling them if you don't pay attention to me, you're going to die of something bad.
Right, right.
And this is where genetics has been focused on diseases. And we understand why, because when I studied genetics at the University of Michigan, one of my advisors was Dr. James Van Gundy Neal, Jim Neal. And
Okay.
Jim was really the founder of human genetics because he discovered the gene for sickle cell anemia in
Okay.
1948.
Wow. Okay.
And
Wow.
that started the whole movement of understanding the genome as a thing to look at. And obviously, almost all the research is focused on diseases,
Yeah.
heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, for both because it's a medical issue, but also because the drug companies and the companies in the medical industry, That's
Yeah.
what they go on. They live on, they make money.
Yeah,
off what they go
yeah,
on.
yeah, they do.
So, but for me, when he said that, I said, why don't we use genetics in a more positive way? Then about 20 years later, in the late 90s, I was teaching in the biotechnology program at Johns Hopkins University,
Okay,
teaching master students.
right.
But I was teaching the business courses, creating
Oh,
the biotech enterprise, the economics of biotechnology,
okay.
ethical, legal, regulatory issues, things like that.
Those kind of things, yeah.
And my students said, we finished the Human Genome Project.
Mm,
I said, okay, it's time to bring genetics out of the darkness of death and dying into everyday life.
okay.
And that's really a whole that's a flip mindset for the
Yeah.
world of genetics. And that's what I'm focused on now, Mark.
And there still are not a lot of other people focusing on the positive aspects of genetics in my perception, because, I'll give you an example. I saw a video the other day that was, of course it was fictional, but it was a pharmacological scientist talking to somebody, and he said, "Well, why would we possibly invent a cure when we can make more money selling people all these pills for their entire lives, And I can't help but have some thought like, well, yeah, that might be happening, because cancer research has been around since Charlemagne was in short pants,
Yeah.
and they say they're making progress, but you know, anyway. So tell us a little bit about your company, Golden Thread Tech. You're applying the positive aspects of genetics to weekend warriors and soccer moms,
Yeah.
helping them.
And soccer dads. We don't leave the dads out.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about your company. Your product is not out in the marketplace yet.
Right.
You're doing research or you're writing software. What will the product be? Will it be an app, or will it be a pill, or what will it be?
Well, that's a great question. It'll be an interactive app that will let people interact with positive information, much in the same way they interact with Amazon if they want to buy things,
Okay,
or interact with Google Maps when they want to go somewhere.
okay,
The
okay,
key that Amazon and Google Maps have in common is they're really fundamentally data analytic companies that
okay.
give access to things on the internet.
Right,
But Amazon says, we know what you've been buying for the last 6 months, so here's some suggestions.
right. No, I'm on that site a lot, so
Right. And
very
Google
familiar with.
says,
Yeah.
we know where you are. We know what's going on the roads. You, here's how you get you where you want to go.
Right,
So I said, well, this is that we have to build the same model by focusing more on data analytics, given the foundation of genetics,
right,
as opposed genetics being the end point itself.
right. And having it help people, like in your case, help people avoid injuries in their athletic activities and
Right.
that kind of thing. So,
So let's talk about a relatively specific example. So one of the issues that a lot of parents are focused on, but also a lot of adults, is the risk of concussion injury.
okay.
Yeah, and people think that because of the news spectrum, that football is the number one issue for concussion. Turns out
Yeah,
in high school in America, soccer and lacrosse are 1-2 for concussions.
I'll be darned. Okay. Oh,
Football is not.
I'll be darned. Okay. I would
Another
not have thought that at all.
right. And another sport that has a very high injury rate is rugby.
Hmm.
Rugby is kind of like soccer and football combined without equipment.
without the equipment.
Right. But rugby has
Yeah.
a very high injury rate. So let's
Okay.
let's talk about concussion. So what do we know happens as a result of a head injury? Well, in many cases, it's minor and you recover. But in some cases, it has an impact, no, and that's not an intentional pun, it has an effect of changing the person's life.
Okay.
Now,
Because that part of the brain has been damaged or what?
it means the brain has been damaged in a way that reduces its functionality.
Okay.
And that's part of my reason for getting at the golden thread was because a woman I knew in Montgomery County, Maryland, her son was on a Division I scholarship path for soccer. And his senior year of high school, he suffered a concussion that ended his scholarships.
Boy.
That's a life-changing event.
Of course, yes.
Right. Now, here's the thing, for most people, the way you handle concussion is keep your head out of the way. And I'm saying that to be a little facetious because,
Yeah,
I mean, in most sports, you can't do much to keep your head out of the way.
right.
Although I will share something from my next door neighbor, who was a former professional football player for the Cowboys and the Redskins.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
And he was an
interesting.
offensive guard and he played about
Oh,
a
cool.
dozen years.
Wow.
And I said to him one day, Ray, have you ever had a concussion?
Ha, ha, ha. He said, how many do you want to know about, right?
No, here's his answer. He said, I never had a head injury because I always put my helmet in the chest of the other guy.
Oh, interesting.
He said, but I did have 7 knee replacements and 3 hip replacements.
Ah, wow.
But going back to concussion, so here's the challenge. You don't, I believe, you never want to tell a parent or a kid not to play in sports because
Okay.
you learn a lot being an athlete.
All right.
I played ball. I was a pitcher, and when I was a kid, I had a tryout with the Pittsburgh Pirates as a pitcher.
You did? Really?
Yeah,
That's great.
I
Okay.
did.
Well, gee, I did learn something else about you today.
Yeah, I didn't have a prayer of making it because I couldn't throw a fastball. But
Well,
and then when I was in graduate school, about 15 guys, and we played every sport all year round.
mm,
And the thing you learn in sports is more than so-called teamwork. You learn how to appreciate how each person contributes to the overall team effort.
okay.
And you also learn how to think strategically because you execute a play and you have to think, what's the next play coming up?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're doing analytics to say,
Right.
how do we adjust what we do so we win,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So, but here's the interesting thing. If there are 8 genetic markers that have already been identified by scientists around the world that are associated with an increased risk of concussion injury in sports or
Oh,
concussion in
okay.
general.
Okay.
And there are 2 associated with a lower risk, interestingly enough.
Hmm.
Well, let's suppose you have a kid, an 8-year-old Susan or Michael, who has one of the genes for an increased risk. So what can you do? Well, yeah, you can have equipment changed. You can talk to them about how they play to keep their head out of the way. If it's soccer, do fewer headers. But here's something else. There are exercises that a person can do to strengthen their neck
I'll be darned. Okay.
because there's evidence that the stronger the neck, the less likely there is when a blow to the head to have a concussion because
Ah,
the head isn't going to be moving as much.
okay. Well, good.
So
Very
it's
nice.
like, okay, so now there's things to do.
Yes.
And this to me is the essence of where we're going, is to say, look, injuries happen in sports. And I don't know if I ever shared with you the frequency of injuries in America that go.
I don't remember. Why
Well, let
don't
me
you go
share it
ahead
now.
and tell us for the sake of,
So in the United States, and this is about 8 years old data, so it's not much different. 65 million amateur athletes
hmm,
playing all kinds of sports. Of those, 6.5 million suffer an injury that requires a doctor to see them
is that per year or what?
per year.
So that's
Yeah,
10%.
yeah, 10%. For kids under the age of 15, it's 1 in 8 kids suffer an injury that
Huh.
requires a doctor. It's 3.5 million kids have injuries. And a
Wow.
500,000, so the injury is so severe that it changes their future in
Hmm.
an impactful way.
Wow.
Now, let's be real, Mark. There's no way to make zero injuries in sports. You
Right.
know, I tell
Right.
people you walk out of your door from your house and you could fall down and get hurt.
Yes.
But if you know that you or your child has an increased risk of, say, suffering a knee injury, you can say, well, what's the equipment they're wearing? Maybe we have to change the shoes. Maybe have a knee brace. Maybe they have to do exercises at home to strengthen the knee or
Right.
limber it. When they're warming up, when I was an athlete in my non cooperative way, the coaches had everybody do the same warm ups.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing it. I do my warm ups. I would
Oh,
go off
boy.
by myself
You
because,
got away with that or not?
yeah, they just put up with it because I knew my body a little better than they knew everyone else's.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
because I was a decent performer on the field, they said, yeah, let him
Y-
go. He'll just do what he
Yeah. Yeah. He'll do what he does. Yeah.
right. But suppose you have your daughter going to be playing soccer and she needs to do limbering up for 4 minutes instead of 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you know that, you have her do that.
Yeah. Good.
So you
Good.
can
Good.
adapt
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Adapting. Yeah. Okay.
And that to me, Mark, is the key to applying the science. It isn't about science. It's about making it applicable and understandable.
So would the app perhaps make recommendations of that type?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the idea. But
Good. Okay.
we expect to get over 1 million customers fairly soon.
I would think so. Yeah. Now, who's somebody? Your team is writing the software these days.
Not yet. We're working to bring some people in to write the software because, you
Okay.
know, I have to raise money to hire people,
Yeah.
and the people who
There are a lot of angel investors in Alignable, as far as I know. I
I
would.
have to I haven't been successful in making that connection, but I continue to reach out because I
Okay.
know out somewhere out there are people who will
I
do this.
remind me periodically to keep my eyes open. I don't know if I tagged those people on Alignable specifically, but my memory is over the last year or two, I have met a few. I just don't know if I can put my hands on their,
Well,
uh,
I,
yeah, but
I'll
yeah,
I'll do a little search on Alignable and see who's
yeah,
yeah,
maybe search for the word venture or something.
good
Who
idea.
knows? Yeah. So,
So
and didn't you tell us a couple of shows back that if a person who does athletics finds out about their genetic makeup, just the information itself, the knowing of it, helps them play in a way that's safer.
yes,
Did you tell us that at one point or not?
yeah, the information itself can help people adjust. The problem, some adjustments are relatively easy. Like for example, there's a gene variant for being a risk taker. Now,
Okay.
every athlete, every person who's played sports knows the person who's a risk taker is more likely to get hurt than the non-risk taker.
Okay.
So if you or your kids are a risk taker, or if you're coaching someone and you know someone that has the gene for risk taking, then what the discussion is, Mark, I love the fact that you're a risk taker. It's what makes you a great player. But
However, yeah,
let's talk about the kind of risks you take
yeah,
so that if you do something that's a little over the top, you don't get hurt.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Now, you don't need me to do that because that's going to be based on every single player's individual talents and position and so on.
Right.
So there's another one. There's a genetic variant for not learning from mistakes.
Really? Seriously? Okay. Hmm.
So if you, I've been around, I've seen it happen. So you have a kid out on the field, he's 6 years old, and he screws up a play. And it usually is, Michael, that was dumb. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay. Well, the
Yeah.
problem is if Michael has the gene variant for not learning from mistakes, he's going to do it again.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you, Mark?
Uh,
You have to show Michael how to do it right the first time.
yes, yeah,
You can see
yeah.
where I'm going.
So this genetic makeup helps inform the people that train that child how to train them.
Exactly. It informs. Now, clearly, when you get into the woods, the details of how do you train or deal with knee injuries or shoulder injury, now you're into the biology, which is where trainers and physicians are. And
Right.
at the level of the professional sports or Division One, they've got
Yeah.
so many trainers and professionals.
You
They don't
said
need,
that really goes deep. You were saying that before.
they don't need genetics.
Someone needs to talk to you. Go ahead.
What? Flashlight is right over here. Yeah, so yeah, they don't need the professional teams.
Right.
They've got expertise in the human body.
Yeah. Now the genetics, you said it started back in the day when someone was that the 40s, you said, when someone
Jim Neal
discovered the sickle cell
discovered
anemia.
for sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
Genetics goes back to the 19th century in
Okay.
plants and flowers and understand,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
in agriculture, things like that. But
Right,
for
right.
the human, the breakthrough was Jim Neal discovering a specific thing that says this is what causes sickle cell
And
anemia.
you said that was in the 40s or what?
My recollection is 1948.
Okay. Now, so where can you say, just, I know it's not easy to answer, but where is the path of genetics? How far along have we gotten? Every science is always making new discoveries. I saw something today that Microsoft scientists found a new form of matter
Right.
called topological something, and so that was exciting to hear about. But in genetics, how far along do you think we are, etc.?
I would say we're still at the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
What is changing is that people around the world are becoming more comfortable with realizing the fact that they have DNA in their body that defines who they are as human beings.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people.
Well, it's getting easier. See, the emphasis on disease has gotten a lot of people frightened that
Okay.
data would be misused.
Okay.
So if you're talking about cancer, heart disease, diabetes, anything, Alzheimer's, yeah, you can see stuff. Well, if you test me for my genes and I have a gene for having a bad heart, and an insurance company gets it or an employer gets it,
Yeah.
they won't hire me.
Right, right.
Okay. Now, and
Now, let
that
me ask you a question here. Can a person have a bad heart because of environmental practices? Uh, and the gene is not the only factor. Is that right or
Mark,
not?
that's incredibly important statement. And let me give you an illustration of the role of the environment. I'll give you
Okay,
two, okay?
okay, okay.
An easy one, there's a gene variant for perfect pitch in music.
Mm,
And so
I,
that means hearing notes appropriately.
okay,
But here's the thing, if you're not exposed to music in the first 6 to 8 years of your life, the gene never gets turned on.
I'll be darned. Okay.
Music is the ignition switch that
Oh,
turns the gene on. Okay?
now, do all genes have to be turned on in some way or not, or
Yes,
just
yes.
some?
If they're not turned on, nothing happens.
Okay. Oh,
Now, but here's the way I tell people to think of a gene to make it easier to understand.
okay.
Think of a gene like an automobile engine.
Okay.
When it's off, the car doesn't do anything.
Right.
When you turn the engine on, it can run at different speeds, and the speed it runs at determines what it's doing at the time.
Right. Okay.
So if you
All
don't turn the gene on, it doesn't matter.
right.
So, but here's the example
Oh, Lord.
of the role of environment. There's a disease called Huntington's disease.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's a neurologic disorder, onset in your late 40s, early 50s. When it starts, you're on the skid out. For what it's worth, Woody Guthrie, the folk singer,
Oh, yeah.
had
Okay. Yeah.
Huntington.
Yep.
Okay.
Heard of him. Yeah. Because that's Arlo Guthrie's father.
Other Guthrie's father, correct.
So.
So Huntington's is caused by a single gene in the
Wow.
human body. And that's called an autosomal dominant, meaning
Hmm.
autosomal meaning it's not on the sex chromosome,
Hmm.
and dominant meaning you only need one copy and the gene does its work.
Hmm.
Okay? A
Okay.
recessive means you need two copies for the gene to do its work.
Okay.
So when you think of Huntington's, if you and I were identical twins in traditional genetics, and you're diagnosed on Thursday with Huntington's, I'd be diagnosed on Friday, right? Because we're identical. Okay?
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Up to you're gonna have a
I'm gonna have
caveat
another
in here
punchline. That's
somewhere.
right.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but my ex-wife, Ruth, who's also a geneticist, works with Huntington's,
Okay.
and she studied identical twins and
Okay.
discovered the age at which it starts can vary up to 8 years in identical twins.
I'll be darned.
Well, obviously the genes are the same, what's
Well, and the
changed?
environment is
The
usually
environment,
fairly the
exactly.
same too, because if they live in the same house,
But
unless they
then
were separated or something.
exactly. So there's all the environment is not just there for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And it's the environment that we can control. Just like when you're
Okay.
driving your car, you got to use your gas pedal and your brake to control the car.
Yeah.
If you don't use those two things, you're destined not to be driving very long.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Does that
Very
help you?
amazing. Yeah. It's beautiful. No, it's in future shows. I want to mention a couple of topics here because
Okay.
we're out of time, but that's okay because you and I get together fairly frequently.
Yeah.
In some future shows, would you or would you not be willing to talk about things like the misuse of genetics, which I'm going to say at this point in history, my perception of a misuse would be the whole designer baby thing.
Okay.
It's always bothered me, and I imagine someday in the future it'll be a commonplace thing, just like so many other things from the dark ages to now have changed. But someday let's talk about that, the ethical, because I see you as a thought leader in the field of genetics, and I want to say geneticism, but I don't even know if that's really a word. I know hamburger and cheeseburger are words, but when
No,
you were
I
saying
get
something
it.
about sports, I wanted to say, yeah, I played checkers once.
Okay. What other topics would you like to talk about?
Um, I just want to get a better picture in some show in the future, what you see as the stages of development, say in the next 100 years of genetics. Because I think since you said that we are just at the tip of the iceberg, I think there are some discoveries, et cetera, to be made that, like a lot of sciences, that nobody even thought of yet. They just,
Yeah.
I like what's his name, Tyson a lot. I
Uh-huh.
listen to a lot of his stuff. And he often tells us, well, Stephen Hawking said this or that. And there was one like yesterday or the day before where something that Stephen Hawking had said that, like Einstein, that nobody thought was very probable, has now turned out to be something that was true. And
Right.
it was just something he just vaguely theorized. So I think genetics has got some stuff there, some hope, a lot more hope for us as humans. Uh,
Yeah, I agree with you,
that's
Mark.
how, that's how I feel.
Let me share with you now something that we can do later on that goes into the issue of trying to think of how we're smarter than we're smarter than the universe in trying to decide what genetics means,
Huh,
like
okay.
like the designer babies.
Yeah.
So what I've learned through several things, and I'm going to share an example that's very different, that the human genome is the most complex power system on the planet that Google, Amazon, and Microsoft and Apple combined on their best day can't emulate
Hmm.
combined. And I want to give you an example of something in data that I saw because part of my background is in data analytics.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've learned data tells the story. That's also Jim Neal, the guy I told you about who
Yeah, yeah,
discovered.
yeah. The sickle
He
cell guy. Yeah.
he said over and over again that the data will tell you the story, not the story telling you the data.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, I just happened to come across a very large body of research that measured the menstrual cycles in women over a long period of time.
Okay.
So I did an analysis, and the analysis showed that the menstrual cycle shortens 1 day a year starting at age 20, so that
Huh.
a 40-year-old woman has one more cycle than a 20-year-old woman.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, here's my question that I ask people. Why would nature give a 40-year-old woman one more menstrual cycle than a 20-year-old woman?
Yeah, go ahead. Well,
No,
I would say it would give her a better chance of being pregnant, even though her aging causes things to get
right.
give her a chance to be less pregnant. So it
Yeah,
gives
and then
her
also
kind of equals up,
it's
levels up the chance.
exactly, it's harder for the older woman to have a successful pregnancy.
Right, right.
So nature has figured out that a 40-year-old woman gets one more time at bat than a
Yeah.
20-year-old woman.
Then this brings up a much bigger question that's probably outside the scope of this book, as I used to say, but I have a dear friend who's very wise who says, the universe has its own form of or system of intelligence. And,
Okay.
Darwin called it evolution, but somehow, and it's always fascinated me, somehow the universe knows how to adjust and does the adjusting. Something cues it to the adjusting. Is it, and Darwin said, well, it's because the ones who don't do that don't survive, and so their genes don't get carried forward. I think there's more to it than that.
Well, I like this phrase about the universe having a way of doing things. I will share something that happened to me as
Okay.
an example that if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe the story I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yes.
and when I was an undergraduate at the University of Pennsylvania in the
Right.
early 60s, a bunch of us guys would pal around. And one of the guys was a guy named Ron Sherman.
Okay.
He was electrical engineering undergrad,
Okay.
and he lived 4 doors from me, and we were buddies.
Okay.
In
Very nice.
the summer of '63,
Yep.
he's graduated, and we're down the shore in Atlantic City on the beach.
Okay.
And he said, "I'm taking a job up at Bell Labs up in New Jersey to do research." Okay, Ron, have a great time. See you.
Right.
This is 1963.
Right.
By 1971, I'm now in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan. It's a springtime, and I decide in like April, and this is 71 or 72, it doesn't matter which year it is.
Right.
I decide on a Saturday morning, I want to call Ron Sherman on the phone.
Okay.
I call information in North Jersey. Do you have a number of a Ronald Sherman? Yes, we do. And I
Right.
write the number down. I pick up I pick up the phone to call him, and
Right.
there's no dial tone.
Okay.
He had just called me at that instant after 8
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Synchronicity.
I said, "There's
I've
no
experienced that a few times in life, and I think most people have once or
right,"
twice.
but to my brain said, "There's no way for physics to explain that. This is
Right.
like the universe has its own
It's been
structure."
almost 10 years, and yet you both, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Dialed the phone the same day, same.
Yeah, same
He
time
said
of day.
he said the phone didn't ring and I didn't hear a dial tone. Like there's no way for that to happen.
Yeah.
But that's
There,
the answer. I think
yeah, there's more.
there is
Yeah, and it's something I don't like to say in public too much, but there's more to science and the universe than we imagine. And the way I get there is I have this little thought experiment in my mind. I
okay.
go back 2 or 3 thousand years in human history, and I look at how people perceive things then, especially the Middle Ages, because the
Right,
Middle Ages were so dark and so stupid and all that. I mean, there's things that happened before the Middle Ages that you would be shocked about, like the Moors. I'm getting off topic, but the Moors did a bunch of things and trained Europe how to do them, and
right,
then Europe eliminated the Moors. So, but back in the Middle Ages, people thought, well, physically washing up is very bad for you. It
right,
will give you disease, blah, blah, blah. And so everybody walked around smelling bad and then covering up with perfume, both men and women.
right,
And so now we know better, but I'm saying there's things 200 or 300 years from now, people are going to look back at this time, just like they're going to do every time, you know, and say, my God, those people were so stupid about this this one thing. It was
right,
right in front of their face and they couldn't see it. And it's a good thing. To me, it's hope, because hope, if we last long enough, we're going to get smarter, and hopefully some of these problems that we've had for thousands of years, like hunger and homeless, there's like 60, 70 million people around the planet who are homeless. I mean,
that's right.
there's no excuse for that. Anyway,
No, I think
uh,
I tend to be the optimist like you.
yeah,
I think we continue to learn, we continue to adjust, and these some of the advancements create trauma and problems to adjust.
Yes, of course.
I often cite as an example the movie, the film with Spencer Tracy from 1960 or 61 called Inherit the Wind.
Okay.
It's a movie about the Scopes monkey trial in
Oh my God.
1943
Okay.
in
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
But here's the scene that captured my mind.
Okay.
Spencer Tracy is defending the guy who's being tried.
Right. Okay.
And he gets in front of the jury and he says something like, so if you want to go back to the time when we had privacy and nobody bothering us, we have to get rid of the telephone, we have to get rid of the automobile.
Oh God.
And
Yeah,
so
not gonna happen.
there it is. It's
People
like,
are not gonna go backwards.
right. So everything, like when you and I were growing up, the idea of talking to people live on a computer didn't exist. The
Well,
idea of
and if you, I know I'm getting excited about this because if you, I think about this a lot. When I was a kid, you looked in our living room, there was a phone, there was a TV the size of a half of a refrigerator, there was a camera somewhere, etc. And now all that stuff is in here, is in this little tiny thing. If you told people that back in the 50s, they would have put you in an insane asylum, you
and
know?
here's a little story that you can that can be shared. I started in the computers in the 60s, but in the late 70s, early 80s, I got involved with the national software industry.
Okay.
And in the early 80s, I had a conversation at a software meeting. I don't remember what it was, but I was sitting with a guy, he was either with Burroughs or Honeywell, the big mainframe company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah.
And we were talking, and he said, well, nobody's going to buy a computer to put on their desk.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, I've got several stories about this. One of them was somebody did a futuristic study in like 1953. You know, there was the whole ENIAC thing back in the 40s, right? That big computer that filled up an entire room. And so in 53 or so, somebody did a study. I think it might have been funded by Xerox. And they said, as far as we can figure, the entire world is going to need 50 computers.
Right.
Now, today's average car, I would guess, probably has more than 50 computers in it. One car. And
Absolutely.
in our house, we've got, I couldn't even count how many computers are in this house because everything we own has a computer in it, you know?
Mark,
So,
I want to share one more story
yeah,
that I think can help the viewers and the listeners. And again, this is me speaking,
yeah.
okay?
Well, we
I
love,
used,
you're very popular on our show.
well, thank you. I used to read science fiction
Okay,
and when I was a kid through most of the 50s.
okay,
And I wasn't fantasy. It wasn't the bug-eyed monsters. It was science and fiction.
right.
But one story I remember because I went, oh my God, who would expect this? But it
Yes,
got me into the mode of how to solve a problem.
right.
The story is a scientist invents a force field, and they say we're going to build spaceships with the force field. So that way the weight's very low and we can get some in space because the payload, right? That's a big thing.
Right, right, right.
So they try to do that and they discover the problem with the force field was that it broke down after about a minute and a half. And so that means the air would escape and you would die.
Yes, yes.
So the guy who was the researcher figured out a solution.
Okay,
The solution was to turn the force field on and off 5 times a minute
okay.
so that by being on but off for a second, the air couldn't
Right,
escape. So
right,
they could
right.
have a spaceship that was a flickering force field, and whoever went. So now
Very
that's
nice,
real
very nice.
innovation, right?
Yes, and I think science fiction, real science and fiction together plays an important role. I mean, if you look at Star Trek, which
Yeah.
I'm sure is the most obvious example, a bunch of stuff happened in the real world in part because Ray Bradbury or whoever wrote that, I can't remember now, uh, put that show on. And, that show had a tough time and finally, almost got canceled the first year and all that. But so many things have come out of that.
And
So,
that's, yeah. So there are clues that we can look at, but
yeah,
I'm an optimist.
yeah,
I see things happening, but it's not perfect. We have to adjust. But
yeah,
the alternative is staying stuck.
yeah. And I also think that two things. I think science will be able to get through this period of history where we're kind of in an anti-science environment. I
A
think
little
we'll
bit,
get
yeah.
through that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like is that what we define as science, period, is changing.
Agreed.
Not just with the advent of quantum computers and all that other stuff or AI, but it's changing in a some other way that's kind of ineffable, I would say. So, well, anyway, we love having you on. I swear,
Thank you.
you're so. I mean, I do compliment all of my guests. Don't get me wrong. I'm kind of a two-faced hypocrite and a contract assassin all wrapped in one. But you're amazing, and I love talking with you. I learned so much, and you
Well,
let
thank
me
you.
say stuff which some of my guests tell just no, they don't. No, none of them do that.
We're
Anyway,
having an
so
exchange, Mark. I appreciate it.
yeah, so thank you for what you're doing. I will really want to see gold thread tech come to market at some point. The app will probably have a subscription price, you think, or what? That would be the best way to fund it, wouldn't it, or not?
Well, once we get the platform done where we can get it out, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of arriving at a good, fair price for people.
But I would imagine you're thinking of a subscription model. That's
Well, I'm
so
combining it
common right now.
an upfront fee and then a subscription
Yeah,
model.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the idea is upfront fee and then let you use it for 6 months
Okay, to see.
because it has to be valuable. And if you like
Right.
it after 6 months, you can get a subscription.
Yeah.
But the
Okay.
idea really is, look, it's about giving people something that can make a difference. That's
Right.
reasonable and reasonably priced and easy to
Okay.
use, you
Okay.
know,
All
and
right. Good.
that's the way I think.
Yeah. No, it's great. And did I, some housekeeping here. Did I send you your last couple of shows for you to review yet or not? Do you know?
I think you sent me something that said that the show was getting posted or something, but I didn't see a link to
Okay, I'll try to remember to send that.
it.
And
Okay,
yeah, so just thank you so much.
thank you,
I
Mark.
can't wait for our next show. And I don't know.
It's
You're Go ahead.
I appreciate your enthusiasm and the opportunity to share things and
Well, and
hopefully,
you're so kind and so generous with your time. So, all right, folks.
and I would add that
We love you
for your
very
audience,
dearly. You want to
I
give us your phone number just for fun in case people want to
well,
call
no,
you?
we'll use my email
Okay.
because phones are hard to answer because they're too much spam, but I'm
Okay.
always
So
happy to
what's your
respond.
email?
It's F as in Frederick, D as in David, Abramson, Abramson, at golden thing, like the metal,
Right.
thread, the thing you sew at
Right.
READ, tech, TECH
Right.
dot com.
Okay.
FD Abramson at goldenthreadtech.com. And I'm happy to respond to things, and if some reason I miss it, I don't mind if someone says, I sent you an email 3 days ago and you haven't answered, because things end up
Uh,
with spam,
yeah,
look,
no, I miss so much stuff. It's ridiculous. All right, folks.
thank you.
We love you. Dr. Abramson loves you. Just take care. Thanks for listening.
Okay,
Thank you, doctor. Just take care of yourself, please.
I'll do what I can. Thank you. Have
You're
a great
good
afternoon,
people.
everyone.
All right,
Bye-bye.
sir.